Today, we will yet again take a look at The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, since an overwhelming number of you wanted more. So we found some other unused maps that for some odd reason never made it into the game. Now let's start, shall we? First up, some more ship stuff called P-Ship 2. Jumping down to the lower level will spawn 2 Stealthos enemies. When you defeat the enemies, no ladder appears. However, you can use your hookshot on the chest to get to it. It contains a Triforce chart. The only other objects on the floor are 6 skulls, which don't give you anything when broken. If you look at the area behind where you start, you'll see it looks like the pirate ship, not the ghost ship. There's also a second version of this room called P-Ship 3, but everything is gloomier and the roof is slightly different. This place was most likely meant to become a mini-dungeon, where you get the Triforce chart as a reward. And for some reason, they used the pirate ship. Does that mean that more of these ships were planned to appear in the game, like hostile versions? Or, ironically enough, did they use it to save time? Well, there aren't any clues why they used it actually.
But as we all know, the entire Triforce chart hunt was a pure filler and a pain to deal with, so it makes us sad that they didn't use it. It would have made this long task more fun, since you have to actually do something to get closer to the end goal. But they planned a lot more of these mini dungeons, and actually, they planned a lot more in general. Sadly enough, there wasn't enough time and it wouldn't have fitted on the disc anyway, as it was only 1.5 gigabytes. Now, let's move on to the next thing. Some early versions of rooms in the Tower of Gods dungeon. First, room 19. This spacious room is really weird. Its room data file is almost empty, it doesn't even contain a spawn point for Link, and that's why this room isn't accessible in-game. Because of its lack of objects, it's anyone's guess as to what this room was for. If Link looks up, there is a hole in the ceiling right above the middle of the room. There was probably a warp that led out of the room. Most likely, it was a very early boss room, or at least was the room that preceded room 20, the early bell tower. We will get to that one in a second. If Link walks towards the doorway, the screen fades out and Link enters the final version's boss chamber. Now, the reason why it goes to the boss chamber has an explanation, but we're not 100% certain if this is really what happened. It comes down to a mistake made by the developers during the tower's refurbishment, when there was no set exit for Godin's room, and so this room ends up connected to the boss, oddly enough. Now, this room is pretty weird and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and to be honest, it also confuses us a lot. Next one, room 20. This was supposed to be the top of the Tower of the Gods. While the bell object is still loaded, it doesn't fit the bell tower. The model itself was changed, probably when the dungeon itself went through the redesign that scrapped a lot of rooms and almost all textures. It is worth noting that there is no room like this in the final dungeon, they completely changed it. They were probably not satisfied with this version and just redesigned it, but overall the entire dungeon was redesigned at some point. The exact reason for this is unknown. But it was a good thing that they got rid of this version. It doesn't look as good as the one that ended up in the final game. Now for our last one in the Tower of Gods, room 23. This is an older version of the mini-boss room. Defeating the Dark Knight will net the player the hero's bow just like in the final game, though trying to exit through the door causes Link to just fall. Interestingly, this room was featured in one of the images sent to the press, so this must have been changed near the end of the development. They sent it to the press, that should say enough. Overall, it's a pretty basic room, nothing really special, and probably only got redesigned as its textures didn't match up with the rest of the temple anymore.
Now we also have some stuff on another dungeon, the Earth Temple. This one is called Room 31. This one is an early version of the second chamber of the Earth Temple. The only objects it contains are mini-blinds and a switch, which spawns an additional mini-blind when pressed. As mini-blinds never appear in the final version of the Earth Temple, it's unclear why this room was chosen to test them. However, it does make sense that they weren't placed in one of the generic square enclosures. Because mini-blinds are capable of climbing walls and other structures, a room that consists of nothing but a rectangular box would not allow the developers to test this feature. So yet again, a test room, and they just used a room from the Earth Temple to do it. Overall, it's nothing special. It's just filled to the brim with those annoying little devil things. Later on, they just put the textures in and designed the room to what it needed to be in the final game. Simple enough. Now for our last one, we are looking at an early version of the Bomb Island mini-dungeon. The game's map select refers to this map as Sub-Dungeon 61, and it contains early versions of 2 rooms found in Bomb Island's cave. Hitting the crystal switches in this location with the boomerang causes a treasure chest to appear. However, it seems that this chest's contents were never finalized, as it holds nothing but a green rupee. There are also no enemies as far as we can see, and the room is pretty similar to the final one. It just lacks some features. One big change is that they replaced the crystal switches. This was most likely to make it harder, since you can just hit them with the boomerang from a distance, and so they were replaced by buttons. Now believe me, there is way more. We haven't even covered half of it yet. There are still more rooms, items and other stuff that didn't make it into the final game. So we will continue with this next time. Thanks for watching everybody, I hope you enjoyed. If you want to watch more videos, be sure to click those video thingies on the screen. And if you want to be up to date, be sure to click the subscribe button and then the bell. Because YouTube is being tricky. Just do it. Thank you. You are very kind.